Hey everybody, my name is Paul Lesden Jr., aka Boy Green. I'm the New York Jets digital reporter for Heavy.com. Hope you like the new digs. This is the new home studio here. I kind of moved over everywhere. We got the New York Sack Exchange Jets autographed helmet by the entire four-pack, of course. And we got some nice Boy Green Madden autographs and all kinds of crazy bits. So welcome to a surprise Wednesday night show. We're going to try to do this more often as we get into the off season, bring special guests on to talk about a variety of topics. So first off, no matter where you're watching, we're streaming live in 3 places. Heavy on Jets, over 15,000 of you joining us. So thank you so much. On our YouTube channel, youtube.com/boygreen25. And of course, verified blue check on the Twitter account at boygreen25 as well. We're going to talk a little Buffalo Bills. It's a regular season finale for the New York Jets. And I brought on all kinds of Buffalo people. I quite frankly love the networking aspect of this job and getting to talk to different people. I've got great friends in Miami. I got some friends in New England and a lot of friends in Buffalo. But this next man is about to join us live here on the show. Is someone I have not had the pleasure of interacting with until this very night. So I hope you guys could give a warm welcome. Let's bring him in. His name is Bruce Nolan. And of course, you can find all his stuff at Bruce Exclusive on Twitter, the verified blue check there as well. He's the host of the Bruce Exclusive, and co-host for Food for Thought with my good buddy Nate Geary and Buff Rumblings of SB Nation. So let's bring him in. Bruce, how are you, man?
Dude, it's a party all the time. Disco balls, dancers, the whole thing. If I was doing better, they would lock me up, think I was crazy.
Well, let's speaking of crazy, let's get this origin story here because again, like I said, I've had a lot of great friends from Buffalo, Greg Thompson, Sal Capaccio, and so many others, and they're all great. And I've heard the whispers of your story, the Bruce exclusive. You're at 10,000 followers. You're staying away from the FBI and your identity. There's a lot here. What can you tell us about your origin story? It's almost like a Marvel origin story here.
Well, not much because, I'm on the run from the authorities, so it's really important. What actually happened was I was a member of the old team official Buffalo Bills message boards.
Okay.
A long, long time ago. And my username on the Buffalo Bills message boards was Bruce Nolan, which is an odd name to have if you're not familiar with the movie that Jim Carrey was in called Bruce Almighty, which takes place in Buffalo, New York, where he is a Buffalo beat reporter essentially from that area of the country. And so it was kind of an inside joke. It was always funny. I always ended a lot of my posts with "that's the way the cookie crumbles." It was kind of a joke, and it's a movie I enjoy by all means. So when I came to Twitter largely because they shut down the Buffalo Bills message boards, and I was looking to reconnect with the people who knew me as Bruce Nolan. So of course that became my handle, and essentially it remained dormant from 2010 to about 2018. And in 2018, a buddy of mine decided that we were going to start a podcast together. And I didn't really want to be part of it, but he kind of talked me into it. And we decided to start a podcast. So I decided, well, I should probably connect with people on Twitter for this podcast. And so I did. And it just kind of took off from there. We eventually became part of Buffalo Rumblings. He broke off to his own show. Then I had my own solo show. We added a show later on with Nate Geary. And so for me, it's just kind of evolved from there. But I'm not someone who's ever shown my face in public. And I really have no interest to do it. I work under a pseudonym for very reason. I specifically delineate between my personal life and my online persona. I have very little interest in ever having those two things combined. So for me, it just kind of took on its own sort of thing. And people started asking me, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Everyone else, they want the publicity. They want their face out there, right? It's part of marketing. Number one, you don't know what I look like. Putting my face out there might not actually help. So also, right, I had to come up with the reason why I wasn't doing it. So what I did was I kind of adopted this funny little shtick that I was actually on the run from the FBI and they were tracking me. And the FBI agent's name is Jan, who's always after me. So you'll hear me reference Jan. And it's just kind of this fun little shtick because the fact of the matter is it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I look like. It doesn't matter what my real name is. It doesn't matter where I live. It doesn't matter. None of the stuff even matters. All that matters is the content. And so because of it, I've kind of managed to separate myself out from a lot of the other noise that kind of gets in the way of providing good content, because it doesn't matter. I could be anybody. I could be 7 people. It doesn't matter. All that matters is the content. It's not about the way I look. I don't get called names on the internet because of the way I look, because nobody knows what I look like. You can't utilize any of that stuff against me, which really has a tendency to put the focus on the content itself. So for me, I'm perfectly happy and satisfied to continue on doing this shtick for as long as I do the podcast, which could be another year, could be another 5 years. I don't know. But that's essentially how the origin of Bruce Nolan came to be. And the fact that I got verified under a pseudonym is hilarious to so many people. They're like, you've got to be kidding me. I said, well, that's the way the cookie crumbles. I don't know what to tell you.
That's phenomenal. I got to say, a line that I like, Benjamin Albright, he's a good friend, and he used the line for a Denver Broncos hire, but I like connecting that here. He said that the Broncos, zigged when everyone was zagging, for the Sean McVay to the Vic Fangio thing, the offense, younger guy to older defensive guy. But here, again, in this world that everyone, myself, you see Boy Green behind me, all these banners and Boy Green the nickname. I'm trying to brand myself everywhere. I guess my radio career and everything else does that as well. So I'm just trying to shove Boy Green down people's throats and here, face, beard, here's what I look like. And it's funny that, again, you're zigging when everyone else is zagging. It is fascinating. I guess that is a part of the beauty, I guess, of the beast here, is that it is so unique in its way. So again, you plan on trying to do this as long as possible, as long as you can keep separating these two. Because again, I am quite envious, quite frankly, that you're able to separate these. And I imagine that when you turn off Twitter, you could just go live your life. And there's, again, no correlation, no connection, where you're kind of held hostage, so to speak. Is that, again, I'm kind of envious of it. If you could keep doing it, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and I think I will be able to keep doing it. But the other thing is, I don't have to worry about ever being seen in public or recognized with any of those things.
That's a good point.
And my wife and I never get people who, I've had people come up to me, which is the riotous part. I've had people come up to me and I'll be wearing like a Bills shirt, and they'll be like, "Hey, go Bills!" And I'm like, "Hey, go Bills!" And we'll start to talking. They'll be like, "Yeah, I listen to this podcast. This Bruce Nolan guy." I'm like, "Yeah, he sounds like a loser," and we just keep right on going, because the hilarious part about it is that the name is fake, the voice is fake. So the way I sound right now is not the way I sound in real life when I'm sitting there talking. This is a heavily modified version of my actual speaking voice. So for me, it's just a nice way to just completely delineate those two things. And so it doesn't matter how many thousands of people listen to the show. If I meet somebody in real life, I'm not Bruce Nolan. I'm just blah, 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 name redacted because of FBI. So for me, it's just about the content. It's not about any of the other stuff. And Bills Mafia has been unbelievably gracious, and the NFL community at large has been unbelievably gracious. I have people who follow me who are fans of other teams. I have people who follow me who are analytics people, draft people, and they've just accepted that. They've just been like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that we don't know what your name is. It doesn't matter that we don't know what you look like. All that we care about is that we like your content. And I love it with you. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, like I said, it's unique, and I'm very attracted to it. I find it incredibly interesting. Now, I hope you can help with this scenario. I know what your answer will be with your Buffalo Bills allegiance, but I got to be honest, the Jets are in a bit of a pickle this week, because on one hand, of course, you want to win every game, and beating the Buffalo Bills would be great, quite frankly. And unfortunately, the Jets have lost 11 straight games in the AFC East, so it's not been great. So, I mean, winning in general would be good, but the Jets fans know that if the Jets beat the Bills, that opens the door for the New England Patriots to win the division. So if we lose, it's not great, because you don't like to lose. We've done enough of that this season. But on the other side, if you win, you open the door at least. Again, if the Patriots lose anyway, I guess the Bills would back into the AFC East anyway. But, we're in quite a conundrum this week. Can you provide anything on what we're going through here? It's tough.
It's a matter of how important playing spoiler is to you. If you recall correctly, there was a year not too long ago where the Jets needed to beat the Buffalo Bills on the last game of the regular season to make the playoffs. How important is it? How important is it to the fan base? How important is it to the players to play spoiler? And that's really where you start to verify these things in your head. You go, okay, everything in life is a value proposition. What you give versus what you get. And in this case, what you give is the Bills an L, and you give them an opportunity to get knocked down from the division leader into a wild card spot. Is that worth getting a lower draft pick? Is it worth the amount of, if you finish the game on a high note, are you someone who believes that momentum from the end of the season can carry into the next? I am not, for example. So are you one of those people who think the best case scenario is for Zach Wilson to play really well against good defense, but you to still lose? Is that the best scenario, right? So it's all about value propositions. And what you do is you start to line up the things that are important. The play of your young quarterback, getting a win, getting to play spoiler, the emotional benefit of getting a win on the last game of the season, things like that. And you kind of weight them against each other, recognizing that they are conflictual in nature, but you start to learn a lot about a fan base by the way they respond to games like this. So one of the things that's interesting to me about examining the Jets fan base this particular week is they'll tell you what's important to them based on the way they want to see this play out.
Yes, no, that's an astute observation, quite frankly, and one again we're continuing to battle through. But I'm curious. I want to dive into the mind of the Buffalo Bills here. For a long time we were kind of in a similar boat. What I mean by that is, although the Jets have had varying levels of success in the 21st century, not lately with 11 straight years without the playoffs, but 11 straight years without the playoffs is nothing on the Buffalo Bills having 17 straight years without the playoffs. And now, all of a sudden, regardless, the Bills are already in the playoffs. They're playing for positioning and seeding here with a potential division title. Again, they're already in. But if I have the numbers correct, what's that? 4 out of 5 years for Sean McDermott in the playoffs. Has the temperature changed for Buffalo Bills fans in a sense? Like, do they still feel in that 17 years just getting to the playoffs was great, and now this mentality has kind of changed here 4 or 5 years in the playoffs? So what is the desires now? What quenches the thirst for Buffalo Bills fan? Is it that now elusive Super Bowl championship? And what is kind of the bravado for the Buffalo Bills heading into the postseason now that they've been there so often?
I think for the fan base, one of the things that's important is to draw a line of delineation between people who are Super Bowl or bust proponents and people who are not. Because there are certain teams that come into a year with sort of this strange subculture in their fan base. And one of those strange subcultures is the Super Bowl or bust people. I am not a Super Bowl or bust person. However, there are a lot of people who are. They are, this is the year, as if somehow this is the only year, which is the implication behind the phrase Super Bowl or bust. It's Super Bowl or failure, as if somehow the difference between second place and 32nd place are identical. Now, I would disagree with that. As you know from talking to me in the last 5 minutes, I am not a Super Bowl or bust person. I did a podcast this offseason, which a lot of my offseason podcasts are philosophically based. They're really not about the Bills at all. They're about football in general. And I talked about the Super Bowl or bust mentality and why I believe it's flawed. Because the way to win in the NFL is to be as good as you can for as long as you can and hope you get lucky. The idea that there's a Super Bowl or bust concept completely eliminates the understanding of the variance level associated with football. The best team does not always win the Super Bowl. The best team frequently doesn't win the Super Bowl. This is not the NFL. This is not the MLB. You don't have massive amounts of sample sizes where you can guarantee the best team is going to get to the championship because you have 7-game series. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. Upsets are a big thing in football. And on one hand, we say things like, any given Sunday. But then on the other side, they say things like Super Bowl or bust. You can't have both. You cannot be simultaneously an any given Sunday person and also a Super Bowl or bust person, because Super Bowl or bust ignores variance and any given Sunday embraces it. So you can't have both. So for me, there's a subculture of Bills fans that are Super Bowl or bust. And for them, getting to the playoffs is like, not good enough. Don't care. All I care about is a chip. Well, okay, was the Andy Reid era in Philadelphia a failure because he made all the NFC championships and lost them? No, he was not a failure. The fact that he made it that far, that many times, that was a good run. The ball didn't bounce their ways enough times for them to win a Super Bowl, and they butted up against some really good teams in some bad situations. But there's so much luck associated with this, and we just don't like admitting that. We don't like admitting it when it comes to this. So for some people in the Bills culture, it is Super Bowl or bust, don't care about anything else. I don't even hear about the playoffs. For a different set of us in the Buffalo Bills subculture, which would be me, I'm sitting here going, listen, every time you get to the tournament and you have what you believe to be a franchise quarterback, you've got a shot, period. If you make the tournament with a franchise quarterback, you got a shot. Now, if you make the tournament without a franchise quarterback, you still have a shot. It's just a lot smaller. It's happened. Brad Johnson, Trent Dilfer. A quarterback can get hot. Eli Manning, Joe Flacco. It can happen, right?
Yeah.
But
Sure.
it's a matter of probabilities. And so I don't deal in absolutes. I don't deal in Super Bowl or bust. I deal in probabilities. And anytime you get to the tournament, whether you're a 1 seed or a 6 seed or now an newly introduced 7 seed, if you get to the tournament, you have a franchise quarterback, you got a shot. So for me, I'm fine.
Again, we're speaking of Bruce Nolan. You can follow him on Twitter at Bruce Exclusive on Twitter. He is a proud member of Bills Mafia, representing Buffalo Rumblings, which is the SB Nation site covering all things Buffalo Bills here. Again, a very unique conversation here. I love it. A different slice of life I'm getting right now. Again, the New York Jets play the Buffalo Bills in Week 18. This is the first Week 18 ever for NFL regular season football, the longest season in history. For Buffalo, it will continue. Obviously, who they play will be of interest. Let me, I guess, ask you this, Bruce. Do you have a preference on who you want to play? Is there an opponent in the probabilities that you say, hey, I kind of like our chances against this team? And then on the other side of the coin, I'm curious, is there a team that you're like, oh boy, I'd rather not see them? Is it Indianapolis, who gave you guys some trouble in the past before? New England presents a unique opportunity because, of course, beating them, I imagine, would be, in terms of quenching the thirst. I can speak to it. That was the last time the Jets were in the playoffs, is in Foxborough beating New England. That was pretty tasty. But, of course, losing to New England would also give quite a damper, I would imagine, as well. So with that being said, again, what's a preferential matchup according to the analytics that you'd like? And then on the other side, what's one you'd rather avoid?
If somehow Oakland or Pittsburgh somehow sneak into the playoffs, I will take them gladly.
Yes.
I will take them gladly. I do think that they would be a team that would get into the playoffs, and they would be one of those things where they would have to win a game to prove they belong. Just getting to the playoffs wouldn't be good enough to prove they actually belonged in the playoffs. So I'll take them. And I don't think it's disrespect to Oakland or Pittsburgh, but I don't think they're of the same caliber as the Bengals, the Chiefs, the Bills of the world. So I'll take that. I'm okay taking the Chargers, even though they have Justin Herbert, because it'll be the first playoff game for Justin Herbert, and it's the first playoff game for their current head coach. So for me, I'm okay with that. I'd rather not see the Colts because stylistically I don't like it. I'd rather not see the Patriots because it's tough to beat the same team 2 out of 3 times in a year. I don't think they want to see us either, quite frankly. I think both teams don't want to see the other team. So for me, I'd like to see Pittsburgh. I'd like to see Oakland. I'm okay with the Chargers. I'd prefer not to see the Colts. I'd prefer not to see the Patriots, and I never want to see the Chiefs.
Fair enough. And I concur, by the way, on the whole Raiders-Steelers. So that would be an optimal matchup, I would imagine, for Buffalo on that side of the coin. Now, you may have already answered this question earlier, again, based on the probabilities. And again, I really agree with that narrative that, again, if you have a franchise quarterback that you deem worthy, then your lotto ticket becomes all the more valuable in the playoffs, where obviously anything can happen. But what chances do you give yourselves as Bills Mafia to finally win this year? Again, you got all the way to the doorstep last year against the Kansas City Chiefs, an incredible opponent in an incredibly hostile environment at Arrowhead. But what chances do you give yourself this year? Or is it all going to be dependent on the matchups in the path?
I think a lot of it will be dependent on the matchups in the path. I think a lot of it is simply a matter of who gets hot at the right time. I do think that teams start to figure themselves out later in the year, specifically when it comes to offensive and defensive line play. I think the idea that you have an offensive line gelling is a real thing. And the Bills finally kind of started to figure out over the last 2 weeks. I think that bodes well for them moving forward, assuming Ryan Bates' knee injury is something that can be managed. I think that's beneficial. The Bills have made a switch at running back to the point where they're now going with more of a bell cow approach with Devin Singletary that is completely against every single thing that Sean McDermott has preached over the last couple of years. He has never been a bell cow running back guy. So they're starting to make adjustments and going against things that were philosophically pretty strongly set for them. And so I think if the Bills continue to see the success, I think you have a reasonable chance at making a run. I think you have a reasonable chance. You get the right person at the right time. I never say Super Bowl favorites. I don't think Super Bowl favorite is even a thing, to be honest. But because anything can happen in any game. So, but I think that they should feel perfectly reasonable about this year, and probably more reasonable than they felt last year, mostly due to the increased and better play of the defense.
Again, or wherever you're watching, we're streaming live simultaneously in 3 different places. That's Heavy on Jets, which is a 15,000 plus person community on Facebook. We appreciate it. Again, I'm the New York Jets digital reporter for Heavy.com. We're also streaming live on YouTube, youtube.com/BoydGreen25, and on Twitter. We're a couple of verified blue check folks in this chat. That is, again, at BoydGreen25. You guys can comment wherever you're watching, and we can bring that up on the show. A couple of these here. The old Boy Green thumbs up. Thank you very much. Boy Green's the man. Love the enthusiasm. Thank you very much, Jason. Appreciate it. And how about Jason Lowry? I'll be in Orchard Park for the game on Sunday. Looking forward to seeing my boys in green. Let's go. Appreciate all the Jet support as well. But if you have any Bills questions as well, feel free to drop that in as well. Because, again, I'm always fascinated going behind enemy lines and learning things about the opponent. And, again, the different motivations, obviously, for this contest. The Jets, in theory, have nothing to play for. Bills have everything to play for with the division title on the line. And also interesting, I guess I'll throw this at you, Bruce, because this is the other part of it. In week 18, not everyone, as I just talked about in this game in particular, are playing for the same things. For instance, Cincinnati has already announced Joe Burrow will not be playing in on Sunday, which that affects which seeding Buffalo could get based on wins and also losses by others. So that also plays an interesting factor there as well. What's your take? Especially here's another example, but for a different reason. Aaron Rodgers, the Packers literally have nothing to play for. Number 1 seed's locked up, the bye's locked up. But if Aaron Rodgers did not play again in this somewhat meaningless matchup against Detroit, it would be basically 3 weeks before he played football again. Is there anything that you buy or do not buy into in terms of, resting starters and the success or failures that could potentially have on a team as you get into the playoffs and momentum and things of that nature?
Rest versus rust is always a really, really funny argument.
Yeah.
There have been plenty of people who have tried to find in different sports how this works.
Yeah.
And they do it for basketball, obviously, very significantly because of the idea of load management, which is not really a thing in football. I do think that different organizations approach it differently. And I don't think anyone's necessarily wrong because I think at different stages of a team building, you can benefit from rest or rust more. Give you a great example. So Sean McDermott decided to go through the game prep last year, even though it was a fairly meaningless end of year game for the Buffalo Bills. They wanted to go through the game prep anyway because they didn't want to lose the preparation. It wasn't the habitual nature of the playing the position. It was the habitual nature of getting ready. That was what he wanted you to do. You weren't even going to play that long. You were going to play a series or 2 maybe, but he didn't want you to get out of the habit of preparing because it was a young team, it was a young quarterback, and they didn't want him to get out of the habit of preparing. This idea that I don't want to flip the switch off and then flip it back on again when it comes to preparation, much more so than playing. He only played a little bit, but Sean McDermott went through the normal thing, the normal game planning, because he knew they were going to play on Wild Card Weekend the next weekend. So you might as well just keep it going as far as the habit. We all know New Year's resolutions. Everybody knows. You get into a habit in 30 days, you get out of a habit in like 5. That's the way it is. So for a lot of teams, they just want to keep the habit going as far as preparing, much more so than playing. Other people say, listen, my team knows how to do that. I've seen my team before. I know that they know. I've known this from watching them on bye weeks. I know this from knowing who the leaders are on this team. I know that I can turn this off, have them get healthy, and they can turn it back on again. I know that that's a thing. So I think it's different based on your knowledge of the team and based on the specifics of your particular squad. I understand why teams do it the way they do it. I just don't want them to mismatch or misconstrue or not be honest with themselves about the type of team that they have. If you have a type of team that's very young, I probably wouldn't take my foot off the gas. If you have a team that's veteran, laden, the coaching staff's been together forever, the coordinator's been together forever, the quarterback's been there forever, you might feel a little bit more comfortable turning it on with the idea that you can turning it off rather with the idea that you can turn it back on again. So I think for me, when it comes to rest versus rust, I don't think there's an answer. I think it's an answer that's based entirely on your particular situation.
Fascinating. And some other comments here. Johnny Dean from NFL Edition, first time watching. Great show. Thanks, Johnny, for checking in. And Ryan Balake, much respect, Boy Green, always bringing it with the energy. And fellow brother Gang Green, you betcha. Speaking of Gang Green, Bruce, I need your candid and honest admission here. Again, Bills see the Jets twice a year, every year. Obviously, it's been less competitive recently, at least from a Jets perspective, as the Bills have been heading in the right direction here. But how do you and the Buffalo Bills Mafia, how do you view the Jets? Do you, and I want you to be as honest as possible. So if you're hurting feelings here of all the Jet fans, maybe watching it and everything else, feel free. But are the Jets just an easy carpet to walk over? You see them, you're like, when you see it on the schedule in April and May when it comes out, depending with COVID, obviously it's been going a little later than normal. But do you see it and go, perfect, can't wait to quick sweep of the Jets? Is that how you look at it, or is there a different version that you guys look at the Jets as of late?
I think this particular year, I do not know a Buffalo Bills content creator or media person who looked at the Jets and did not think that the Bills would sweep them this year, because they're in different stages of team building. I don't think it's a matter of the Jets are a joke and they're always going to be. I don't think anybody who's reasonable ever thinks that. But if you have a first-year head coach and a first-year starting rookie quarterback, and it's a complete rebuild, you're supposed to be that. That's the point. I don't know why anybody would expect anything different. If I was a Jets fan, I would be looking around going, okay, yeah, like this expectations minus reality equals disappointment. So if you came into this year and you expected the Jets to go 11-6 and make the playoffs, then guess what? You're going to be disappointed. But you came in saying, listen, this entire year is about qualitatively how Zach Wilson does. And what we've seen from Zach Wilson is he's been markedly better after he came back from the injury, very similar to the way that Josh Allen as a rookie was much better when he came back from his injury. I'm not saying Zach Wilson is Josh Allen and they're going to have the same career trajectory, any of that stuff. I'm saying that this year was never about the W's anyway. If you're being honest with yourself as a Jets fan, this year was never about maximizing your W's anyway. This was all about Zach Wilson, and it was all about Robert Saleh. All of it. Yeah. Is Robert Saleh the guy? Is Zach Wilson going to be the guy? And you're never going to know that after 1 year anyway. You're not looking at the data point. You're looking at the data trend. And that's the difference. It doesn't matter what the point is. It matters where the trend is. Where was the dot at the beginning and where was the dot at the end? The reason why Bills Mafia was so much more optimistic about Josh Allen than a lot of the community is because they weren't paying attention to the data point. They were paying attention to the data trend. If you go back and watch Josh Allen versus Green Bay in his rookie year, Paul, it was bad. It was really, really bad. Yeah. Like you walk away from that game and you go, has this guy ever played football in his life? This is terrible. But then if you look at the end of the year, you go, hey, I think there's a little something. He's not making the same mistakes he was making. He's making throws he wasn't making. And at the end of the next year, you go, you know what? Numerically, it was a little bit different, but they're asking him to do a little bit different things. He's not relying on his legs as much. He's starting to see the field a little better. All these things, you're like, okay, it's trending the right way. And so people get so focused on the data point that they completely ignore the data trend. And as you're navigating the waters of a first-time head coach as a rookie and a rookie quarterback, you should be way more focused on the data trend than you should the data point. And so when the Bills look at the Jets, we may look at the Jets and go, well, yeah, I think that's probably a sweep, right? Sure. But if the Jets look at the Jets, they shouldn't really care, quite frankly, if they get swept by the Bills, because it doesn't really matter. This is not about this year. It's about the trend for future years, and that's based on Robert Saleh and Zach Wilson.
I have to ask this, and I'm sure you guys may be annoyed, quite frankly, answering this question, but I'm going to be honest, heading into that draft, obviously Jets and Bills for that matter, we're looking for a franchise quarterback. And, I'm a big draft fan. We'll find that out, Bruce, if, this is not the first and only encounter, I guess, depending on how this has gone. But I'm a huge draft fan, and heading in there, I'm going to be honest, I saw Josh Allen, his tape at Wyoming. I'm like, oh, my God. And it was blunt as if he's not accurate in college, and I get some of the reasons that there was with lack of talent, drops, and everything else, but I just thought to myself, to a blunt level, if he can't be accurate in college, how the hell is he going to fix that? How can you just get more accurate at the NFL level when people are bigger, stronger, faster, and everything else? So I just thought for almost that reason alone, I'm like, man, he's going to be a bust. I see all the physical talent. I see a poor man's Big Ben Roethlisberger in my mind is what I was seeing pre-draft. I'm like, okay, I just don't know how it gets to the next level. So quite frankly, Bruce, I don't know, you probably have this answer cooked up, as does a lot of Bills people, because they've been asked this question a million times. How the hell did he go from not being accurate to all of a sudden he was an MVP candidate last year?
It's a matter of why. It's always a matter of why. So as you are looking at Zach Wilson, one thing I would encourage all the Jets fans listening to this show is to understand this concept. How and why are far and more important interrogatives than what. What is just that. It's just, here's what happened. But that doesn't tell you anything. It's not predictive. What is not predictive? Oh, Zach Wilson missed that pass. It doesn't matter. It matters why he missed the pass. Because why and how are predictive. What is not. The fact that you missed a pass does not mean you're going to miss the next. Why you missed the pass could potentially tell you if you're going to miss the next one. So for Josh Allen, it's always been about why. Why was he missing the passes? And the answer is mechanically he's jacked up. That's the answer. He's always been jacked up. So if you go through this like a workflow, okay, you look at the top as a flow chart and you go, Josh Allen's missing passes he shouldn't make. Great. Why? And then from there, everything flows out as far as the flow chart goes. Why? Why is he missing passes? Okay. Is he missing passes because he consistently has bad arm angles? Is he missing passes because he doesn't know where he's supposed to go with the ball and he's making late decisions? Is he missing passes because his footwork's bad? Things like that. Well, he and his private coach said, hey, I'm missing passes I shouldn't be making because my lower body is not in tune with my upper body. They're throwing independently of each other. We need to rebuild this. Okay, well then the next question is, can it be rebuilt? And the answer is, in a lot of cases, no. In a lot of cases, no. The reason why you heard the narrative, you can't rebuild accuracy, is because it's really hard to tell a quarterback who's thrown the ball 10,000 times in his life, you needed to throw it differently. This is the caveat with Josh Allen. He didn't throw it 10,000 times in his life.
Yeah.
That's the difference right there. Josh Allen came out of college with an unbelievably small amount of pass attempts, which means those terrible habits weren't nearly as ingrained in him as we thought they were, which means he's still coachable. He's still fixable. It's a lot different than a 4-year starter who throws the ball 500 times a year, coming out with 2,000 pass attempts, and he's all jacked up mechanically. Nope, Josh Allen threw the ball like 640 times in college total.
Wow.
It's just not a lot.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to Josh Allen, it's a unique circumstance where you have someone who is completely jacked up, but isn't necessarily beyond fixing. And that's the why. That's why it matters so much. 649, by the way. I just went ahead and looked it up. I did off the top of my head. I was 9 off.
That's
649 pass attempts for Josh Allen in college. That is basically nothing. Let's compare that. Let's compare that, shall we?
Sure.
To the first overall pick in the draft.
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield had 1,497 pass attempts. Over double by a lot for Josh Allen. Baker Mayfield was committed. He's going to throw the ball like that forever. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Josh Allen was a JUCO transfer who only threw the ball 649 times and at no point in his life had the upper level coaching. He didn't have the private quarterback coach. He didn't go to the all elite 11 camps. So it's not a matter of, is he broken? It's a matter of why is he broken and can he be fixed? So for Josh Allen, that was the key. It wasn't the what, it was the why. And as you look at Zach Wilson, it's not a, did he miss the throw? Did he throw an interception? It was, why did he miss the throw? Why did he throw an interception? And the answers to those questions are going to be able to help you as fans predict where he's going to go moving forward.
I feel like I can't speak for everybody who's listening in, but I see everyone chiming in on comments. But again, I just feel like I'm getting smarter. So we need to schedule more of these, Bruce, because I need all the help I can get, quite frankly. So this is good. So I'm feeling getting smarter listening to your answers. A couple of quickies here. First off, I don't know if you have these numbers in front of you, and I didn't prepare you for this, so you probably don't. But how does the Bills defense perform against rookie quarterbacks? Because, and unfortunately, I was at the last Jets-Bills game this year, and while it was relatively close in the first half before Corey Davis fumbled the ball, and then everything kind of blew, the barn doors got blown off in the second half. And it was Mike White actually in at quarterback this time around. Obviously, Zach Wilson will get his first crack at this Bills defense. Obviously, it's very good. There's continuity there, and that always helps. But how good is this Bills defense specifically against rookie and young quarterbacks?
Very good is the answer. Very good.
I was afraid of that, honestly.
Sean McDermott is 6-2 against rookie quarterbacks since 2017, and they have markedly more interceptions than touchdowns. I mean, I think we're at somewhere in the 5 neighborhood when it comes to touchdowns and somewhere in the 15 or 16 neighborhood when it comes to interceptions. So this is not strong. It's not a good thing, right? And as Paul mentions in the comments, against one particular rookie quarterback, 3 passes were enough to beat him. Darn straight it was.
Throw that on the board.
Yeah. The rookie quarterback. This is one of the great reasons why wins are not a quarterback stat. Wins are not a quarterback stat because you'll look at that and go, look, Mac Jones got the W. Mac Jones didn't do anything. Mac Jones did not get the W, right? The team got the W, right? Wins are an organizational stat. But historically, the Bills have done very, very, very well under Sean McDermott. And one of the reasons that is because of safety play. So Sean McDermott's safeties, Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde, are essentially interchangeable. And they have the synergy and they have the chemistry together where they can hold their disguises much longer into the snap than you can otherwise get away with because of their knowledge of how to play off each other and their knowledge of angles. So you can have someone hold cover one a good bit into the snap longer than other ones would be able to do, where the quarterback might get to the top of their drop and still not know what coverage it is. The safeties still haven't quite rotated because they believe so strongly in their ability to get to their landmarks in coverage that they can hold it a little bit longer. And because of that, a lot of times these rookie quarterbacks, they're taught to look at the safeties to confirm coverages before they move on. And they'll get to the top of their drop and go, I still don't know what this is. I don't really know what I'm looking at. And because of that, now their chronology is all messed up. Their timing's all messed up. They didn't get to their first read on time. Because they didn't get to their first read on time, they didn't get to the second read on time. And so a lot of the reason why Sean McDermott and the Bills have been successful against rookie quarterbacks is because of safety play.
Wow. And by the way, I was at Bills training camp a couple of years ago, had the great pleasure of, and the Bills, by the way, the Bills media people are phenomenal. The Bills PR staff is great. Went right on the field over there at St. John Fisher. I know with COVID that hasn't been able to happen, but right on the field, got to interview Micah Hyde. And what a super I can't believe you guys still stole him from the Green Bay Packers. A phenomenal, heady, just everything. And he's fantastic. And so is Poyer, for that matter. Let's throw a couple of questions in here. I'll give my take on this, bro. So I'll be interested to hear yours. This is Ryan Balake. Given how well Diggs worked our secondary during the first matchup, how does Ulbrich and Saleh better prepare for Diggs to lessen his impact for the offense to give us an edge? I'll mention off the top, Saleh mentioned this in the postgame press conference of that game, is that stylistically and schematically from his defense, they don't like to do a lot of match corner stuff. And maybe that's because they don't have a Darrelle Revis on the team. So maybe that's partly a piece of it, but they refused to move people around on Diggs last time. And obviously, I'm sure the Bills tried it out a couple of times. It's almost like doing motion to check if it's zone or man defense. And once they saw the Jets weren't adjusting, especially at the end of the first half is where I remember it in particular, they went after that same corner over and over and over again. If the Jets aren't going to do anything about it, of course, the Bills are going to continue to go with it. And plus, Stephon Diggs obviously is ridiculously good. So I think that combination, quite frankly, is it. Since that game, which again shows good learning by the Jets coaching staff, they've done a little more match with Bryce Hall occasionally. They've done a little bit of match with Brandon Eccles, who's a rookie. So it's a super inexperienced and young secondary, but they've learned from their mistakes. He refused to adapt or die in that game, and the Bills made him pay for it time after time after time. It seems like they've learned their lesson from that time. Will that work this time? I don't know. Diggs is still pretty good, but the match thing at least will help a little bit because Bryce Hall is clearly this team's best corner. Brandon Eccles has been exciting in moments, but he's a 6th-round pick for a reason. But we'll kind of see what happens. Bruce, what's your take on that?
I agree with the Bryce Hall thing. If you have someone who has started to show out as your best corner, I'm not saying great, I'm saying best, because when you have a defense that has given up historic levels of points, you probably don't have greatness a lot of places on the defense. But if you do have someone who's starting to emerge as a young player, which Bryce Hall was, remember he was banged up all the time in college, right? Came out with huge injury red flags. When you get him that late in the draft, I was a huge Bryce Hall fan, very angry when the Jets got him because I was a big buy low guy on Bryce Hall, and he's becoming a player that we all thought he was going to be for the Jets. And you should be really happy about that. So number one is the match thing. The other thing is that Stephon Diggs is not always a preferred target of Josh Allen when on the move in the scramble drill. So if you can get Josh Allen off his spot, then you can have a better feel for the targets he's going to go. When he goes to look down the field, a lot of times it's a Gabriel Davis scenario. A lot of times Gabriel Davis is someone who mashes up with Josh Allen in the scramble drill. And if you have a corner who you think can stay with Gabriel Davis for longer into the play, who can hang with him 2.5, 3 seconds into the scramble drill, if you get Josh Allen off his spot and get him to move around, that's going to intrinsically lessen the impact that Stephon Diggs has, because it's not as much of a target in the scramble drill as other receivers are.
I will also say this in terms of hating the other team for drafting a guy. Gabriel Davis was a draft love for me. And when he fell to you guys, and I heard the Buffalo Bills take him at an old UCF, I'm going to be honest, I shaked my angry fist at the sky and said, damn you, Dingleberg, or in this case, damn you, Buffalo, because he's a player, man. And while, again, he hasn't, up until recently, hasn't had to have been used. It's kind of a nice first world problem there with Emmanuel Sanders, Cole Beasley, Stephon Diggs, Isaiah McKenzie, who had a nice pop a couple of games ago. I mean, again, you just have so many receivers that you haven't had to rely on him exclusively by any means, but he is a stupid talented player. And I am, again, talk about jealousy. I'm a little jealous of that Gabriel Davis pick from a couple years ago, I'll be honest.
I don't hate it. I'm not going to lie. I don't hate having another couple of receivers. I think one of the big discussions that is going to be happening in Bills Mafia this offseason is Gabriel Davis ready to be wide receiver 2 of this team? Because it was the same discussion they had at the beginning of last offseason before the Buffalo Bills signed Emmanuel Sanders. It was, do you need to go out and get somebody, or is Gabriel Davis ready? So now we're just going to have that same narrative pop up again this offseason, and I think the answer is going to be a little different.
All right, let's pop this one up for those who don't know, and just a quickie here for those who are unaware. For the Buffalo Bills, it's simple. You beat the Jets, you are AFC East champions for the second year in a row. If you don't, there's still a path for Buffalo to back into that. If New England loses, they play Miami, who they lost to earlier in the year, and they've historically had issues late in the season against Miami. But again, if Buffalo had it their way, they would much rather, obviously, control their own destiny and win. So that's as simple as it is. So there's no resting of starters or anything really for Buffalo. I mean, as far as I don't want to speak for Bruce and the Bills, but I would assume no resting here. There's plenty to play for here for Buffalo, and I'm sure they want the home playoff game more than anybody, and they can guarantee that by winning this game. So for folks who are asking about this contest in the past, and I can't blame them, historically, there sometimes is nothing to play for some of these, and it is a rest situation. We've had that, unfortunately, a few times for the Jets-Buffalo, where Bills have gotten a chance to rest their starters in this game because it didn't mean anything for either side. This is not one of those scenarios. Did I speak out of turn there, Bruce?
You did not speak out of turn at all.
Okay.
It is absolutely a scenario where the Bills want the division more than anything else. That has always been the focus of this team. Even this past offseason, where a lot of the fan narrative was about, what are you going to do to topple the Chiefs? Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott consistently brought the narrative and discussion back to, well, let's not talk about that. Let's win the division first. So I see no reason why they would not be going full-blown, balls to the wall. Let's get this taken care of. Let's win the division.
So just to confirm, because I got another question about it. So no resting of starters for Buffalo, it looks like.
Not that we know of, no.
Okay, excellent. So I just wanted to confirm that. We'll only answer a couple more of these guys, then we're going to let Bruce go. Bruce has been great, and like I said, hopefully the feeling's been mutual here, and we'll definitely have him back on in the future. This has been a lot of fun. I haven't seen this question yet, so let's just go. I'll read it live. What is going on with the inconsistent RB play throughout the season for the Bills? Do you think not having enough balance offensively will keep them from having a deep run of the playoffs? I will say this. I think their best running back is Josh Allen. That's probably been the case since he's been drafted, quite frankly. So I think he's been great. And I will say from afar, I've really liked, in theory, when they drafted Devin Singletary. I thought he had a lot of tread on the tires coming out of college, but to me, he was highly intriguing. And when they got Breida, I said, wow, that's a different breed, which is interesting. A kind of a Jaguar-like speed in the backfield. How they use him will be interesting. And against the Jets, ironically enough, he kind of went off a little bit there and had some versatility in the passing game. So he's an interesting dude, too. And then obviously Zach Moss, who kind of brings that Brutus beefcake to the table. But for you, Bruce, I guess to answer that question, what is the inconsistency in the running game? And I will kind of add on to this on top of that. Will that somehow, throw any rocks in the road here for Buffalo as any kind of lack of balance offensively? Could that hurt them in the playoffs?
Well, the first thing is the premise that a lack of balance offensively can stop you from being a Super Bowl champion. I don't think that's been proven to be true. I don't think that in the playoffs, you need to have balance in the traditional sense. Now, you need to be able to run the ball enough that people care that you're going to do it, because otherwise they'll sit in coverages that will make your pass game more difficult, and you're increasing the margin of error if you are able to run the ball successfully, and you're decreasing your margin of error if you're not. So that's always better than the alternative. One of the things that you've seen from the Bills over the last couple of weeks is they've gone away from something that they historically always felt like they were going to be, which was a running back by committee system. If you look at Devin Singletary's carries so far this year, 11, 13, 11, 14, 6, 5, 7, 6, 7, 3, 15, 10, 4, 22, 12, 23. Over the last couple of weeks, they have decided, you know what? The best way to get consistency from the run game is to let one guy handle all the load. Let's let him develop a feel for the way the offensive line is blocking this particular game. And it's been working out pretty well over the last couple of weeks. The other thing to consider is that the Bills' interior offensive line play this year has been bad. One of the big discussions for me going into the first Jets game was, I don't really like Quentin Williams against the Bills guards. I don't enjoy this. I'm not happy to see this. Could I please not? And so the Bills' interior offensive line play has been bad enough that a lot of people are pounding the table for a guard in the first round. When was the last time you had a team pound the table for a guard in the first round, Paul? It's that scenario. It's that bad over here in Buffalo when it comes to guard play. Over the last 2 weeks, we have seen previous undrafted rookie who was traded to the Bills from the Philadelphia Eagles in a late preseason trade a couple of years ago, Ryan Bates, come in at left guard and actually be okay. And we're like, are we this desperate for interior offensive line play that we're settling for Ryan? Ryan Bates is Loki from the Marvel universe and going, you must be clearly desperate if you're coming to me for help. That's what Ryan Bates is doing at this point.
Yeah.
Truly desperate must we be. And it's true. The Bills are truly desperate. So there's two things to that. Number one, you see a different face on the offensive line. And number two, you've seen the Bills decide, you know what? We're going to be a workhorse team. We're going to be a one-back workhorse sort of running back team, which they've never been before. So that tells you the depths and the lengths to which they're willing to go to get some semblance of a reasonable non-Josh Allen running game moving forward.
And I will say this, you said, oh man, when's the last time a team has been pounding the table for a guard? That unfortunately was the Jets last year. I loved, actually, I was one of them pounding the table for Elijah Vera-Tucker, trading up for him. It's worked out pretty well. It's coming off probably his best game of the year. Well, Bruce, I could talk to you all night long, and I would, but you have a life to get to. You have people to run from. But I will say this, and I won't, you could jump in here at any point. I don't want to reveal any information you don't want public, so I'll just speak from my perspective that my first encounter with you actually was a private conversation, and I was going through some troubles myself, and you gave some kind words during that time, quite frankly, that really reinstilled some faith in me and things of that nature. It made me believe. And you just gave me the right words at the right time for the situation I was dealing with. And, I prayed on it a lot. And quite frankly, I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. I'm going to be a first-time dad here in a couple weeks. And my daughters, Zariah, Luna, Serenity, Esden, is due here in a couple of weeks. I can't wait to see her. But I have to say that, and I don't say this lightly, that your kind words several months ago when things were not looking good. I've been very candid that it was very hard for me and my fiance to get pregnant. And there were times where we thought it wasn't going to happen. And you had an open shoulder, so to speak, and you listened and gave some kind words. I just have to say thank you so much. It really made a tremendous difference. That little you gave me there made a tremendous difference in my life. So I do want to be able to say that. So I want to thank you so much for that.
Paul, I recall our conversation very significantly. It was something where I was glad that I was able to be of some assistance from that standpoint. And to hear you now tell me that you guys are expecting is just, it's a wonderful blessing. The idea that you made it through, right? And you're getting ready to see quite literally the fruits of your fiance's labor, right? You're getting ready to see the fruits of someone else's labor, quite frankly, but you're going to get a chance to see a payoff that you thought for a long time was not going to come. And for people out there, right, who are just trying to go one more month, just trying to go one more day, just trying to go one more week, I just got to get it to the next thing, right? I just got to get through now. Sometimes you give up too early. Sometimes you resign yourself to a fate that's not really yours, and you didn't do that. And I'm thrilled. I did not know that before we got on that you guys were expecting, and I am just, dude, I'm so happy for you. I can't even explain it.
Yeah, like I said, I know we had that private conversation, but this is really the first time that quite frankly, I've really talked about it on air. But this is obviously our first time ever speaking. For those who don't know who have enjoyed the show, I'm glad that the chemistry has been there and people have enjoyed the show. But I do want to say that like you could have easily who's this guy? Who's this guy sliding my DMs? I don't even know who this is. And again, you could have easily blown it off and not said anything. But really, to me, I really had no one to in my mind to really talk to about this. I don't know if there's a dummy guide or what to try to figure this whole thing out. So I was kind of struggling with a lot of different emotions and I saw they had an open DM open, so I said, hey man, let me just dive in there and try to get some help and some thoughts and some insight because I didn't know who else to ask or who else to talk to. And like I said, we had never spoken before, but really, again, that just made all the difference for me personally and helped me. Man, I just got to keep trying. Just keep, well, don't want to go too far, but keep, I was going to say pounding the rock, but I guess that's a bit too there. Sorry, folks, for that visual.
We're not Panthers fans. It's not hashtag keep pounding.
That's right. I'm using the wrong hashtag there. But long story short, like I said, that made a tremendous difference for me. And then the fact that it was able to actually, lead to that conversation to keep trying and then eventually to have this again with a lot of problems along the way. It's just, it's a magical thing. Like I said, I didn't mean to put you on blast, put you on the spot about it, but it made a big difference to me. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that, obviously, during our first conversation.
Well, I appreciate that, Paul. It's I remember the conversation well. I still have it in my DMs. And the funny thing about this is my DMs are not open at this point.
Oh,
right.
I'm sorry. Sorry, people, for that false alarm when you go to follow him and you're not sliding into those DMs.
The only reason you were able to do it is because I followed you and you followed me.
Oh, okay.
Because otherwise you wouldn't have been able to do that. So I think that's really kind of ironic that we had never really interacted before. I followed you because I like to follow people who are part of the content creation and media community in other AFC East teams and across the NFL. So I followed you anyway. We had never interacted. I had followed you, you followed me, but we had never interacted. And that was the only reason why the door was open. And, I'm not a big, fate guy when it comes to those kind of things, but it kind of felt like that.
Wow, there you go. And I'm seeing people, yes, pounding the rock. Yes, there you go. Again, whoopsie. Sorry about that, Ryan. And that's awesome. So again, cool story. But Bruce, like I said, I've spoken to a lot of different Buffalo Bills people. This is one of the most unique, insightful, and I just feel smarter after coming off this. So fantastic. We have to do this again. Good luck to the Buffalo Bills. Quite frankly, if I was on a cliff and I had to pick one to win the division, it would be the Bills. And I don't know if you've been a part of this in the past. I will say this to end is that for the last, I don't know, it has to be the last 10 or 15, probably 20 years now, is that me, a Dolphins fan and a Bills fan, before every year put our fist in the middle and said, it just, as long as it's not the Patriots, as long as it's one of us. And we did like this A-team thing before every year. And obviously, for the most part, those conversations failed. But eventually, the Dolphins did it weirdly that one year, but then the Buffalo Bills have done it once, and we'll see if they're able to do it again. So that was always, it's a lot of fun. So I'm not sure if you guys ever had that, but again, if it could be anyone, I hope it's you guys. You guys go on a run because Bills Mafia deserves it.
I do think that Bills Mafia deserves it after what they've been through. And I think that for a lot of Bills Mafia, their preferred hated AFC East rival is primarily based on how old they are. The older they are, the more likely it is to be a Dolphins hater because of the Dolphins having a very significant run of success against the Buffalo Bills in the 70s and the Patriots having it recently. If you're someone who is, 20s or 30s, your hatred might be Patriots directed. If you're someone who's 60, then your hatred might be Dolphins directed. For me, my hatred is just whoever's been most recently mean to me. That's pretty much all I got. So for me, recently, it's the Patriots because the Jets fans in the comments have been unbelievably gracious to me during tonight's show. So for right now, I have nobody on my crap list from this section. I'll give it a minute. Someone will find me on Twitter and say something mean and I'll have to block them. And I'll be like, well, now that's it. Jets fans, you made the list. But until then, right now it's Jericho. Right now it's still the Patriots.
Okay. And same for me, by the way. And that is funny. I've spoken with Dolphins fans in the past that, that Jets, Dolphins, Ken O'Brien, Marino thing for a long time. It's evolved over the years. It really does depend on the age. But Bruce, with that being said, man, again, enjoy the game over the weekend. It was great to chat. And I'm looking forward to doing this again in the offseason, man.
Dude, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
There he is again, Bruce Nolan. You can follow. Feel free to follow him on Twitter at Bruce Exclusive. Thank you so much for him for joining us on the show. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Make sure you please show your support. It makes a tremendous difference, especially on YouTube. Hit that thumbs up button and hit the subscribe button. We crank out New York Jets content all the time. Starting on Monday, Mock Draft Mondays. They'll be joining us on the show with draft experts joining us to talk all things draft. We'll see you guys then. Thanks everybody, and have a great night. Thank you.